Hey, what's up everybody? This is the Helpful Hacker, and today we're going to be going over the Web Application Security Room from TryHackMe. So we'll get started with task 1, the introduction. In here, it's just going to give us a quick intro into what a web application actually is. And they don't just outright give you an exact definition, but they kind of give you an example. And basically the way that they describe it is it's like a program that you would normally run on your computer, right? So for example, let's say you want to run, Microsoft Word, right? If you want to run that from your computer while you're not connected to the internet, you have to download Microsoft Word. But what a web application is it's a lot like a program, but instead of having to download that program, we can just access it over the internet. And we do that through browsers like Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, or Microsoft Edge now, or Firefox, all those are browsers. And we use those to access these web applications that we then use for all sorts of stuff. And they give you a bunch of examples. Amazon.com, web application. When you're shopping for stuff, Etsy is a web application. Facebook, web application. All the social medias you use, they're all web applications. So that's what a web application is. So it applies to pretty much all of the internet. And so you can read through that, kind of get an idea of, or get some examples of what a web application is and how we use them. So, and then it tells you a little bit more about how web applications actually work, how you have a remote server, and that is going to serve the content of the web application to the client, us being the client. So yeah, read through all of that. And then they give you a good example here of an online shopping application. And so basically they just kind of walk you through some different things. I'm not going to go into great detail. You can just read that. And then what I think is really helpful here is the diagram that they have, right? So here we have us, we're sitting on our computer, we're the client. And let's say we go to Amazon.com and we search an item. So we're going to reach out to the actual web application, right? That is hosted somewhere. It's hosted somewhere on a server far away, who knows where. And so we send that search request because we're searching for an item. We send that to the web application server, and then it's going to take that and it's going to send it to a database that's going to have all of our products, right? And then it'll give us back the results, and then this will send us back those results so we can actually see them on our browser. And so just by kind of looking at this and walking through the different steps of, let's say I wanted to log in first, right? I have to go to a customer database and actually log in, right? So they know who I am. And that information is retained in this customer database, right? If, let's say on Amazon, for example, right, you have past purchases that you want to look at. You want to know what you bought a week ago or whatever, right? Maybe that would be stored in something like a sales database, right? So different stuff, kind of gives you a basic idea of how a web application works and how you have all this stuff on the right going on the back end, and all we have to do is just download a browser and use the internet. So it streamlines things for us as the user. And you can read through this right here. It'll give you some, basically just kind of go over this diagram that we just talked about. It gives you the different steps. So just follow those, read through it, make sure you have a decent idea of what's going on. And then right here, like I said, from the user's perspective, this is super streamlined, right? We don't have to deal with all this stuff. We can just, we don't have to worry about this back end. We just use our browser and click some buttons and it all works. So then down here, they're going to talk about bug bounty programs. So yeah, you can read more about those. I don't think it's super important for the room right now, other than bug bounty programs. There's some people who make a lot of money doing that, and basically what you do is you look for bugs or vulnerabilities on different web applications, and then sometimes that company will pay you. So that's what a bug bounty program is, or bug bounty. So just, keep that in mind. Read through all this. If you have questions, Google it. And then we'll get down to the question, what do you need to access a web application? And the answer to that is browser, right? That's how we will actually, get on the internet and access a web application. So with that, we're done with task 1. Now it's on to task 2, web application security risks. So they give you an example here. Let's say you want to buy something online. There's certain things that you just basically should be able to do on a store web application, right? And they kind of give you an order, right? So you would have to log into the website, search for the product, add the product to your shopping cart. Then you'd give them your shipping address, your name, other details, and then finally you would give them your credit card and you would pay for, whatever product it is that you're buying. So there's several common places and several common attacks in this chain of events that hackers like to look at and use. And that's just because of the nature of a web application like this, specifically a shopping web application, right? So one example, log in on the website. There's risk there because a hacker may be able to steal somebody's password or an email, right? And then adding the product to the shopping cart, if this isn't designed correctly, and if there's something wrong with the web application, sometimes you can get products added to your shopping cart for free, for example. So that's another place that people would like to look. And then 5, payment details. Obviously, you're entering in credit card data, so a hacker will want to see how the web application works with those payment details because they may be able to steal them and steal your credit card. So those are just some ideas. You can read through these. And they basically just talk about some of the same stuff I talked about, but they do give a little bit more detail, like how maybe an attacker would use an automated tool to attack the login or whatever. But we'll get more into that as we go. So, and again, like it says right here, we can't cover everything. Web application security testing and penetration testing and all that, like web applications themselves are a massive thing. So we're just kind of hitting some basic highlights, and you'll learn more as you keep going through TryHackMe. So now we're going to go down here to some different categories of vulnerabilities and read about them. So identification and authentication failure. So it refers to the ability to identify a user uniquely. That's what identification is. And then authentication refers to the ability to prove that the user is who they say they are. So identification and authentication, 2 different things. So when you're buying something online, you usually have to log in. For example, if you're using Amazon and you have an Amazon account, you have to log in. So they have to be able to identify you, but then they also have to make sure you are who you say you are. And one way that they do that is through passwords. So there are some different issues that can arise through passwords. And they give you some examples right here. And these are weaknesses that a hacker would look for. And so the first one they talk about is brute forcing, which is where you can try multiple passwords using an automated tool. So a good web application usually won't let you try a password more than a few times before it kicks you off or makes you wait. So if you have a bad web application, you can try it as many times as you want, and eventually you most likely will get someone's password. Another one is a good web application would not let you have a weak password, but there's a lot of web applications that let you put in whatever password you want, and something like Freedom 1 would be a very easy password to crack or to brute force. And then another one is a good web application should not actually store your password in clear text. It should be hashed. We're not going to get into detail about what that is right now. You'll learn more about it. But yeah, a bad web application will just have your password just listed in a database somewhere. And so if somebody got access to that, they could then use your password. So all of those fall under identification and authentication failures, right? So there's best practices that a web application should use. If they don't, hackers can take advantage of that. Another one is broken access control. So basically, what that's saying is each person should only be able to access what they should access and nothing additional to that. And depending on how you build a web application, sometimes people can gain access to things that they shouldn't have access to. And then, so yeah, just read through that. We'll go over a fun example. The practical example is an example of broken access control. So we'll go through that. But yeah, just read through that and kind of generally know what broken access control is. We'll hit it better in task number 3. So then you have injection attacks. Just read that definition. Basically, you're inserting malicious code in some way, shape, or form into the web application. The most common one is cross-site scripting. That's kind of the basic one that people start with, and you can just look into that more if you want to know more about injection attacks. But there's multiple kinds. But yeah, I would say the most common one is cross-site scripting, and it's kind of the easiest to take a look at and get a handle on what an injection attack looks like. Then last, we have cryptographic failures. So this has to do with the encryption and decryption of data, and there's some things you should do and things you shouldn't do. So for example, HTTP, if you're using that instead of HTTPS, then let's say I'm typing in my credit card through HTTP, then that's in clear text. So if somebody intercepts my request, they can just steal my credit card number. Whereas if it's in HTTPS, it's encrypted and they won't be able to steal it. And then weak cryptographic algorithms. There are some old cryptographic algorithms that we used to use that we no longer use that are vulnerable. So we can break them. And so you got to be using up-to-date and current cryptography. And then, yeah, that pretty much kind of covers both of these. You can read through both of these and that top one. And so, yeah, so cryptographic failures has to do with encrypting and decrypting data. So, and like it said, you'll learn more as you go through TryHackMe. You don't have to know these all in depth. This is just a quick review. So it gives you the questions down here at the bottom. You discover that the login page allows an unlimited number of login attempts without trying to slow down the user or lock the account. What is the category of the security risk? And if we remember, that falls under identification and authentication failures. So that's the answer to that one, because you shouldn't be able to just try as many passwords as you want. That's dangerous. And then the next question, you notice that the username and password are sent in clear text without encryption. What is the category of this risk? Again, if it involves encryption, that's going to be a cryptographic failure, because that should be not sent over unencrypted channels. So answer those, make sure you've read through and kind of understand this. And with that, you're done with task 2. Next is task 3. This is where we get our practical example of web application security. So I'm just going to kind of read through this, so hopefully we get a better idea. So basically what we're going to be looking at is something called insecure direct object reference. And this falls under access control, right? So you know what? You actually just read through this. I'll just give you, I think it's best to just go through the example and then read this, and then you'll have a pretty good idea of how this works. So in the example, let's see. This inventory management system manages all of the shipments related to tires. A competitor sent a group of malicious actors to sabotage our logistics. The attackers used the account of one of the employees and mixed up the planned shipments. If incorrect, shipments are sent, products. If incorrect shipments are sent, production will be delayed. That should not have been that hard to read, but whatever. Okay, so they kind of give us our thing here, and we can click through here and look at what we have. You can just kind of click around. So here's the inventory. We can't click on anything. We have planned shipments. Can't click on any of those. Here's our inventory of what we have. And then here's our activity. So what they want us to do is, if we look up here at this URL, and you can kind of, if you read through this, they hint at that. They basically say, look at the URL, and this is basically what we're going to be doing. This example right here that I just highlighted. So they are referencing this employee ID in the URL, right? So how do they know to grab Roddy or this employee? It's because of this ID right up here. So what I can do is I can change that ID. So if I change it to 1, now I'm on a different employee. Okay, so why is this broken access control? Because I should not be able to access other employees. I should only be able to access myself. And this is called insecure direct object reference, because they are insecurely referencing this object, which is the employee ID. And because they're doing it in an insecure manner, I can change it. So I can go through all sorts of different employees. Oh, there's no employee with ID 5 or 4, 7. And what they want you to do is they just basically want you to mess around, go through, explore this. And now we've found an employee, and we can actually take action here. So what we can do is we can revert all of these changes that she made to the inventory. So we'll go through and change all of that, because in this example we're pretending to be bad actors. So if you revert all those actions, you are then given the flag, right? Oh, Aliyah fixed the inventory management system. Okay, I guess we weren't the bad actors. I guess we were fixing the problem. So that flag right there is going to be your answer down here. And then when you submit that, you'll have finished the room basically. But before I click that button, like I said, make sure you go through this. Make sure you read through this example. Like I said, I always think it's a good idea when it comes to stuff like this. Try and do it first by yourself without reading anything. Just click around, mess with stuff, see what you can do. And this is a good principle just to do in every room. And then after you've tried multiple things, then read through this, read the prompt, and then that'll kind of help guide you and it'll stick better. At least that's what I find anyways. So yeah, read through that, make sure you understand it. And again, you don't need to know insecure direct object reference in depth. Just have a basic idea of it, which is just the example we used with the user ID. So read through that, submit the flag you found, and with that, you have finished the web application security room from TryHackMe. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, subscribe. It helps me out a lot. And you also got to check out the operating system security room from TryHackMe next. That'll take you through the next step in the introduction to offensive security module, or the introduction to cybersecurity pathway.